Hello everybody, my name is Michael. I am running the Boardgames Chronicle blog. Today I would like to present to you the movie regarding the Christmas presents. While in my first movie I focus on this year releases, in this I would like to focus on the all-time classics. So you can see here some games which I would like to present to you to describe. They will be categorized into the series. Yeah, we'll have commands and colors game, we'll have a card assisted game, and we'll have a solitaire game. I will tell a couple of words about each and every of them, the historical background, something about mechanics, but also what is important for you, availability. I'm also leaving the reference to my first video under this video in the description. Also, if you prefer the written format, both videos are also created as a blog posts where you can easily navigate through all of the proposals and also click for the further information. I hope this will give you some inspiration, some ideas, what nice and great presents you can do to your beloved ones. I know this Christmas will be unlike the others, similar to the ones a year ago with the pandemic spreading around and us being under constant pressure and stress. So I hope that this hobby of ours will give you some respite and also time to rest. So let's start. My first proposal will be regarding the commands and colors type of game. Commands and Colors series by Richard Burke. Yep, Richard Burke everywhere here. It's a series which has already 17 years. It started with Memoir 44 in 2004. What I will present to you are the three titles which I think show the essence of the system and how it plays. We have cards here, which in a nice way create the fog of war and at the same time create also some possibilities of a command. If you have more cards, you have more possibilities. If you have less cards, you are in a position of a less skilled leader and you have less abilities to move. Another thing are, of course, colors. So the dice we roll when we need to hit, we need to roll for range combat or leader check and so on. This is a pretty straightforward system with some tweaks in the further installments, with a second deck of cards, with some special actions, some special units. But in essence, this is a very fast, quick system where you play the scenario up to 1 hour. They're usually very brutal, very quick, very exciting games. I can also tell you that Ancients helped me to come back to the wargaming hobby some 7-8 years ago, and thanks to this, I hooked up again with this. So without further delay, let's jump now to the particular titles. Ancients. Ancients. Something where I suggest every person to start their journey with commands and colors. Ancients has a lot of expansions. Yeah, I have some rule books here, like expansion 3, 2. There are a total of 6 expansions. We have only one deck of cards, unlike most new commands and colors systems. There is only one. As you can see, I have some custom-made dice. I have some custom-made elephants. Yes, of course, and also laser printed dice. In essence, Ancients provide you with around 170 scenarios to play. In the base game, we have a Punic War with 15 scenarios. In expansion 1, we have Alexander the Great and Greeks and Persians. In expansion 2 and 3, we have both barbarians and the civil wars. In expansion 4, we have an imperial Rome from the 3rd, 4th century AD. Expansion 5 gives you possibility to play epic games. Normally, you would have one board like this, yeah, for the Ancients games. But with expansion 5, you are getting 2 boards, which you can connect here and have a long battlefield for the epic game. Expansion 6 brought Ancients, and since then we didn't have any new expansions. There were discussions about naval version, there were discussions about also biblical part. All in all, it didn't happen yet. So should you be considering commands and colors system? Definitely start here. It's a very elegant game with a lot of good mechanics. With brutal fights of heavy infantry versus heavy infantry really are suitable for the epoch and for the era it describes. Highly recommend. Second game from the commands and colors, which I would like to recommend today, is Medieval. Medieval has so far only the base game with 19 scenarios, and it tells the story of empire, mainly the Eastern Empire and its battles, fights, wars with the Persians. We have, of course, Belisarius here, the great general of the Emperor Justinian, and his fight with the Sassanids. If you look into the box, this is a pretty fresh game. It has like 2-3 years. Yeah, we would have 2 sets, one purple or violet for the Roman, Byzantine, of course, and one tan for the Sassanids. We are getting here one deck of cards. I will not be splitting this, but what is important and interesting in this game is that we are having some special actions. Before jumping to them, I would like to draw your attention to the dice. Since medieval, they are truly beautiful. Yeah, they are nicely cut, they are rounded, and since medieval, also in the next game which I will be showing to you, the samurai battles, they really produce a great quality. Something I'm not very fond of are the victory tokens, which in the ancients were in the form of blocks, but they are at least useful. The board is much more intense. It's greenish, but I think this is fine, yeah, for this type of a game. And what I was referring to is are those special actions. While medieval has only one deck of cards, it has some special inspired actions which you can play with some of the cards and which adds additional flavor to the game. You have a limit of inspired tokens, which are here. You can gain them by playing some of the cards, and you also have some initially at the beginning of the game. And you need to really well play and be careful of the economy of those tokens. They allow you for adding a die to a battle. They allow you to ignore the flag, which was not possible previously in Ancients, for example, or they allow you to use those inspired actions. So while Ancients would be the basic version, I would say, the medieval take it one level up. So we have still one deck of cards, but we have those inspired actions. Cavalry is much more important here than in Ancients. I would say 90% of the battles are resolved or decided, maybe not resolved, but decided by some cavalry attacks. Infantry, when well positioned, of course, can still inflict huge damage on enemy. If you liked Ancients and you think which would be the next step in the Commands and Colors family, medieval would be a good choice. My third proposal would be Commands and Colors Samurai Battles. The newest installment, because published this year, but on the other hand, not so new, because the first version of the Samurai Battles was published by Zvezda many years ago. I think this was a company from Russia, whose founder unfortunately tragically died. GMT took this game and also some of the expansions it had and created a mind-blowing 40 scenarios game. Just a reminder, in Ancients we had like 15 scenarios. In Medieval we have 19. We have 40 here. Let us look into the box, of course. So what's the game about? It's about 16 and a little 17th century Japan, times of samurais, times of soon-to-be shogun. We have two armies here, and they are beautiful. This is one of the most beautiful Command and Colors games I've seen. A beautiful red samurais, yeah. This is the samurai bowman, and we have also the blue one. And this game is definitely more complicated, much more complicated than Ancients, and a little more complicated than Medieval. We'll show you why in a moment. You've probably already seen. Here we have a terrain, beautiful pastel colors. When mixed with red and blue, it looks gorgeous. Here we have a tent for a leader and his bodyguards, special dark black, yeah, tokens, and of course laser cut dice. So we have here two sets of cards. One are the basic cards, command cards, and the other set is dragon cards. In order to dragon card, you need to pay the appropriate number of honor and fortune tokens. Here we have honor and fortune tokens and victory banners. And in order to get these honor and fortune tokens, you first of all can get them in the battle, but you can get them also at the end of the turn instead of taking one of those dragon cards. Those battles and those games are not so bloody like Medieval and Ancient. On a die, you would not have a leader symbol. You see? There is a honor and fortune symbol, but there is no leader. So they are much more tactical, and they are much more, let's say, when you need to combine how to hit the enemy. I told you that they are more complicated than Ancients also because we have a superior stature and superior armor rules. In Ancients, every unit was able to hit every unit with some, let's say, special rules. In Medieval, but also in Samurai battles, if you are a light unit, you are not hitting as hard the medium or a heavy unit as they themselves. So simply, you would have ignore some sword results, both by cavalry from infantry and by the better armored unit from the less armored unit. So that means that simply you need to remember slightly more rules. What else can I say about Samurai battles? I'm still playing through those 40 scenarios. They're often grouped nicely. For example, you can have such famous battles. Let me see. We should have Sekigahara, like 3 scenarios. You have, for example, opening attack, left and right then. So you can have those scenarios grouped chronologically, for example, phases of the battle, but also geographically. So overview battle, left flank, right flank, something like this. This is also strongly recommended if you already have a couple of Commands and Colors games and you're thinking about the next step. This would be one of them, definitely. More complicated than Ancients, slightly more than Medieval, with 2 decks, with additional rules for the bodyguards, for the leader, for the command tent, for superior stature, for superior armor. Also the honor and fortune tokens, and economy of those tokens is very important. So highly recommended as I would say, next steps when you have already some of the Commands and Colors games. Okay, that will be all for the Commands and Colors type of games. Let us jump to the next section. You will never do wrong if you get for a present for yourself or your beloved ones a card-assisted game. This series, to a large extent popularized and created by Mark Herman, is a fantastic way to run the course of a game, to run the mechanics of a game, and to enhance the story behind the game and the history of a game with some very, very cool possibilities. Today I will run through 3. Today I will run 3 of my proposals: Sekigahara, Imperial Struggle, and Empire of the Sun. So let's jump into the details. We were a moment ago in a medieval Japan. We are back. A moment ago, we had a block game, Command Scholar Samurai Battles. Now we have Sekigahara. Sekigahara was one of the pivotal battles in the history of Japan. In Commands and Colors, you can play 3 scenarios about it. Here, we have a 7 weeks campaign between both sides. Okay, so we have a 7 weeks campaign between Tokugawa and Ishida. This is a block game, and the blocks are simply beautiful. You have clans here, and also the strength of the unit. You will have also the second set, golden ones, golden blocks, beautiful. You see there are some various types of units in this game, regular units, gunpowder units, a cavalry unit, very strong peasant units. So this makes for an interesting battles. Now, what's the mechanic about? In order to show you the mechanic, some of you probably know it anyhow, but I would like to bring it in a nutshell. We have a map of Japan. It will probably not fit fully into the screen, but at least let me show you part of it. So we have a map of Japan. We have some starting points for both sides. We have Sekigahara, it was here. And as you can see, even from the beginning, this is a setup which requires pretty quick confrontation. You have some Ishida forces here, you have Tokugawa here. You have again Ishida here with Tokugawa here and here. In order to win the game, you need to control the pivotal spaces, and also you need to have resources to feed your armies. But what is most important, and what this game known for, is the battle resolution. You see, at both times, the loyalty of the troops was a key factor. So while we have 2 decks of cards, which we use for setting up who has the initiative first and foremost, you do it by playing a hidden card, both sides, and whoever has a higher number, he simply goes first. But what is important, if you bring your troops to the battle and you want to fight with them, you need to have cards to activate them. If you don't have cards, they will refuse to fight. So when you prepare a battle, you do not only bring a lot of troops, but you make sure that your hand is built in a way that you can activate them. And even then, your opponent can play the loyalty card, loyalty challenge. If you do not beat it, you will lose some troops. So this is a fantastic mechanic. What I would like also to underline that the rules for the game are not overly complex, although there are some, let's say, subtleties like how many units you can move, those gunpowder units and cavalry units, also the leader units. One more thing, you might wonder, okay, this is like one setup, one scenario. Is replayable? It is very much replayable, because when you set up the game, the forces which are there are only to some extent predetermined. You draw a lot of forces when you set up the game, and you also draw your initial hand and then hand. So you can play this game over and over again in I would say 2 to 3 hours once you are, let's say, efficient and proficient with this, and never get tired. This is one of the most genius designs I saw with card-driven games, and I strongly and fully recommend it for you guys. Let's jump further. I would say one of the best Pacific Theater World War II strategy level games, definitely. Something a real and true masterpiece from Mark Herman. A card-driven game, which is at the same a very interesting strategy game and tactical battles game. Tons of tokens, The blue ones are for the Navy, for the US Allied Navy. The green ones and the brown ones are for the Allied troops and some Navy. Here we have Japanese units, some additional tokens, and of course the heart of the game, so the cards. We have cards for the Allies, we have cards for the Japanese. All you can do in your turn is to play a card and either play the event or maybe use this operational points from 1 to 3 on some special operations, be it activating the units, be it starting the offensive, building some infrastructure. In this game, what I really like is that actually all aspects of Pacific theater war are included. So you don't only have battles. You have, for example, what was going on in China. So the China war, you have a lot of focus on Burma, on India. You have all those small places, which are usually in a, let's say, smaller designs, neglected. The map is beautiful and very detailed. I have a mounted map version. You can see a beautiful map. Here are the resource points. It can be a little daunting at the beginning to read through the whole rulebook for the Empire of the Sun. But this game has a really great system of gradually bringing you to the full campaign. And I think Mark Herman really uses this system of gradual learning. We have a very good example in Pericles, where you have vignettes. Here we have, first of all, small scenarios like 43, 44. You can also play the initial, I think, 1 month when Japanese took over most of the Southeast Asia. So that way, you can really learn this pretty comprehensive game. And once you got through the 1-2 scenarios, it will be pretty obvious how the game flow goes. You still might need to count some distances, you might need to look up some rules, but believe me, this is not so difficult game as some of the people claim. It's really digestible. On top of this, we have a fantastic scenarios in C3I magazine, like South Pacific, for example, or breaking the Bismarck barrier. And we'll have pretty soon the Burma scenario, which I had the pleasure and privilege to play this. So you will see also this. Anyhow, highly recommended as a present for those of your colleagues who appreciate more heavy titles, detailed titles which will bring to them a true and unforgettable experience of the Pacific warfare. Okay, and with that, let's jump now to the 18th century. Okay, so we are now in the 18th century, and we'll look at the global conflict between France and Britain. This is the title designed by Ananda Gupta and Jason Matthews, a congenial duo who also did the Twilight Struggle. Now we have Imperial Struggle. This is a different game than the Twilight Struggle, and you can check on my blog the comparison between both. I will send the link later on. This is a beautifully produced game, a multi-dimensional one. Oh, I have some additional elements, which goes through all 4 continents, which were the place of a simply sometimes open, sometimes a twilight rivalry between both sides. I have here the tokens. You see, a counter tray is very useful for this. We have some war tiles here. We have fleet tiles and victory points and so on. What I like about Imperial Struggle and is its replayability and multitude of dimensions you need to take into account when playing this. For some people, that's too much. For me, that's a fantastic way yet. But before we jump there, to the core mechanics, let's have a look at the board. Isn't this a beautiful board? You see, it's produced in a way that all those victory point tracks are minimized, and the regions are simply overlapping here and filling the whole map. When I first looked at this, I thought this map is much larger than the usual maps, but it's only a design which makes it. So we have Europe, a super important part of this game. I cannot overstate how important it is. We have India, we have Caribbean here, and we have North America. And remember, one of the most important wars you will have here would be the American Revolution. Just like Twilight Struggle, it has 10 turns, but here 6 of them are the peace turns and 4 of them are wars. During your turn, you will not always play an event. Yeah, we have cards. And these cards are both for events and also for ministry cards. You see, each epoch you would have at least 2 ministry cards, which allow you to add some specific bonuses for your side. Here we have for the British. And we, of course, will have also some events. There's a multitude of them. But still, the main driver of the game are not those events on cards, but a smaller cheats called investment tiles. Let me just show them to you. I think we are here. Yeah. So the investment tiles will allow you to make some particular major action, for example, economic, and a minor, which is, in this case, military. You will also have, diplomatic ones. So in Imperial Struggle, as opposed to Twilight Struggle, for example, you have pretty discrete type of actions, and the major ones will allow you to take a couple of things on the map, when the minor will allow you to take only some individual ones. You have a dimensions of the wars. You have dimensions of the advantages, which really adds to your action during the turn. If you combine the ministry card, the investment tile, and the event, you have a really powerful combos. Also, if you add to this the advantage, and for example, special positioning of the fleets, you can get a superb result. It takes a couple of turns to fully grasp the depth and breadth of this game. This is probably a more complicated game than Twilight Struggle, but I really encourage you to undertake this journey. So when you look at my proposals, while Commands and Colors games would be more like a light games, which you can bring to more introductory wargamers, those card-driven games like Imperial Struggle or the Sekigahara or Empire of the Sun, which I was showing a moment ago, are probably slightly more difficult. And I would rather start probably with Twilight Struggle than Imperial Struggle. But if you are confident that you or your friends will like it, go for it. I had so much fun with this game. I think I learned to play it already pretty well. This is not only very replayable because you have different awards per region, different global demand, different ministry card each game, different tiles, different events, but it's also a beautiful game and you would have a lot of fun with this. Strongly recommend. Okay, now I think we need to jump to the third part. Let us assume you don't have a buddy to play with. What you do, you reach for the Solitaire Game. Third type of games, which I would like to recommend as a Christmas present, are solitaire games. Let's be honest, those titles are presents for you, not for a family, not for your buddies, it's for you. So you can play and enjoy fantastic titles, fantastic designs. Of course, some of them, like Pavlov's House, has also cooperative or competitive modes, but still the essence of this game is to create a very immersing and enjoyable, also replayable experience for one person. So without further delay, let's have a quick look at 3 of them and why I recommend each and every of them. Let me start with the Pavlov's House. This is one of the games in the Valiant Defense series from David Thompson by DVG. I love this series, by the way. These are rather introductory or light war games, but you can make them really difficult as far as the winning of a game is concerned. But still, the rules are usually not overly complex, and you can read them, I don't know, within half an hour, 1 hour, and start immediately playing. I choose the Pavlov's House because that's probably so far my favorite title from the list. What I like about it the most, and I need to show it to you, is that it has actually 3 dimensions. We'll have a strategic dimension, we'll have tactical dimension, and operational. What's the game about? It's about the defense of a famous building in the Stalingrad called Pavlov's House, and it will be attacked by Germans. First of all, on a strategic level via Volga River, then on a tactical level, the buildings just nearby and all the plazas nearby, and then we'll have the actual Pavlov's House. Each turn we'll be playing through the couple of decks of cards and then do our actions. Here are the decks of the cards. There's a lot of them. Operational support is additional way to gain the points, so a variant for game. And here we have the main cards. So for example, we will be placing tanks, we'll be doing the air raids, we'll be placing the riflemen and so on and so forth, which will be coming from various dimensions here. And this is for that part. Here we have, oh sorry, these were the operational support, these were the storm group cards. So let me just present them to you. We have tactics cards. If you would like to make the game more difficult, you can add the tactics cards for the veteran and elite level. They can really make the game much more difficult. And the red cards are for the strategic dimension. What I would like to show to you too are something which is very touching. You know, all Valiant Defense games are pretty close to history, very much close to history, and look at the particular people. So the defenders will not be some anonymous people. No, these are to a large extent the true fighters of the Red Army who are defending this building. The assault troops of the Germans are anonymous, but not the defenders. In Castle Eater, in soldiers in postman uniforms, or in the Lanzeraf Ridge, which will have a possibility to back on Kickstarter still this January, you have a true people behind it. And I simply love it, that there is this background. This game, as I said, is pretty easy to learn, but not so easy to master. So don't be fooled. To repel the attacks, you would need to bring the supplies. You would need to get rid of those units here who are closing on you. You would need to make sure that their units are not disrupted, and you would need to exhaust them. There's tons of things you need to take care of, and if their bombing will take down, for example, some of the key spots like here or here, you would be in a great trouble. If you never tried the Valiant Defense series by David Thompson, and you would like to, or you have a friend to whom you would like to give a gift of a solitaire game, try this. That would be really fun, and you should not have a problem to get it from the publisher's side. Second solitaire position which I would like to propose will be one of the D-Day series games, Tarawa. This game is from John Butterfield. I can tell you that I love his solitaire games. They are pretty procedural, and they are pretty strict as to what can happen, especially from the AI perspective, but I love it. We don't have any kind of flow charts. We don't have any what ifs. We usually have cards which drive our game. I choose the Tarawa. We have, of course, also Paleliu, Iwo Jima, and Omaha Beach, because I think this is the best title from the whole series. It brings the specific Pacific theater rules like melee, but also landing with LVTs. So let's have a look into the game. These are the tokens. As you can see, I could not help myself but clip them. Flipbook, yeah. Should you be considering buying this on Board Game Geek, you can have really nice flipbooks which help you to go through the turn. This is the rules booklet. If you look here, you will recognize Decision Games font. We have, and this is something important, in each and every D-Day game, we have a very nice, let's say, companion book. Just like with Pavlov's House and Valiant Phase series, the same is for D-Day. The whole game is, of course, driven by cards, and these are multi-use cards. They are for the landing, they are for the events. Here is for the fire, the Japanese fire, and also for the artillery. So they have a couple of usages. Here are the Americans. They are sorted by the turn they will be entering. Here are the Japanese. We have both elite units, both red ones, and non-elite, both white ones. Here are the depth markers. So let us have a look at the map, a beautiful mounted map. Maybe I will not bring the whole here, or let me try. Just give me a second, please. When I first looked at the D-Day map, I asked myself, what are all those colors for? How does it work? But now, when I look at this, I immediately know these are fields of fire of those positions. You can see those full color dots as an intense fire, and this will be the sporadic fire. An addition, which is not used in other D-Day series games, are those landing zones. You see, here we'll have our LVTs landing here, and they can be hit by the artillery. In order to win a game, we have like 3 or 4 scenarios. You need to take control of those strongholds, strong points, but be careful. If you control this field, but not this field, you still do not get it. I will not deny, this is very, very, very difficult game to win. It gives a lot of satisfaction getting even parts of the objectives. I can tell you, I have no problem with losing D-Day games. They are simply so hard. But every time I start it, I have a feeling, okay, let's try once again. Now I have an idea. Now I have a tactic how to go about it. You see, this is something which is very important for a solitary game. This is my opinion. It has to be replayable, and D-Day is definitely a replayable game. So like 3 scenarios, very intense game, very replayable, driven by cards, a huge fun. Strongly recommend. My last proposal in the solitaire game, but in this whole video, would be Fields of Fire. I will focus on the Fields of Fire 2. I have actually only the 2 and the second part, but I know that the mechanics of the first version are similar. Here we'll go with the 5th Marines through the World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. The feelings connected with this game can be summarized in 2 words: love and frustration. I will go into details in a moment. Let's first of all have a look in the component. Oh, sorry. So first of all, if you would like to have nicely grouped the tokens, use counter trace. I have 2 of them, thanks to which I can pretty quickly set up a game. The tokens which are needed, first of all, representing the actual units. Here you have them. You have a Japanese here, the tanks, strong points. You have here the volumes of fire, for example, also burned wrecks. All the equipment which is used. This is ammunition, yeah. And this will be potential contacts. All of those tokens are used during the game. It's good to have them nicely sorted. It will be scenario book. Yeah, we have a briefing book. We have plenty of scenarios for all three theaters of war. Here are the setups of the map. The map is being set up from the card, so this is really interesting. I will show you in a moment. I have some additional materials which were helping me to grasp the rules. Here is the second part of the scenario book. Yeah, I think it's for Vietnam. This is a mind-blowing mission of Vietnam. Here are the rules. Important disclaimer, GMT1 is now working on new version of these rules. Yeah, a lot of them. Here are still some counters which I was not using previously. Here are some additional materials. This is cool thing. This is the companion log. So when you start the game, you log the status of your company and how it went, who was a casualty, who was promoted after the game. Yeah, I have a couple of such logs here used. Let's get to the cards, and here they are. See, I played through the Paleus scenarios. I have not started yet the Korea and Vietnam, but it's still in front of me. So those cards are to create the map. You create the map in following way. You put them in rows and in columns. They have some defense values. And if, for example, start, I don't know, here, you have some potential contacts, and when your troops got there, you see what you get. So now let's come back to this love and frustration, yes? First of all, love. For me, this is one of the greatest simulations of a company warfare ever created. I will be quite honest. This is pretty detailed, pretty robust, pretty interesting, and you really can see how all those things are cooperating, how the chain of command works, how the units under fire behaves, how you can get in contact with the enemy, what additional assets you can have, like artillery, gas, white phosphorus, and so on. At the same time, it is a frustration because the rule book is pretty dense, hard to read, and you need to reference it pretty often. For this, I would strongly suggest, if you consider Fields of Fire, to start from watching a couple of videos. I will put a link below. I created like 4 videos for Fields of Fire, so you can grasp the game mechanics and the flow of the game. Once you grasp it, it's really becoming so interesting, so exciting, so engrossing. You really want to go through this map to your target, and you want to achieve those objectives. And this kind of a RPG, not rocket propelled gun, but let's say role play game element is very interesting because you promote your units. During the mission, you fulfill some specific tasks, and based on this, you gain the experience and you promote your units, and they have a better statistics then. This is really, really cool element. It takes time to set up the game. It takes time to write the log, but then once you have it set up, it's really great experience. We'll have a third volume, I think, Battle of the Bulge, if I remember correctly. If not, sorry for a mistake. And we'll have this new rulebook, but still, it's good to get volume 1 or volume 2 and play it. I just observed that for the Solitaire game, I proposed to you like 2 of the Marines connected and Pacific were connected, but believe me, this is worth it. Okay, guys, so I just finished my recommendation for the Solitaire games, and with this, I finished the whole video. I really think that even in those difficult times and those difficult Christmas and holidays times, you can get some spark of positiveness. We should all be thankful that we are here and we can still have time for our hobby. I hope that what I proposed to you today will give you some inspiration, and maybe you will get some games for yourself, maybe for your beloved ones, maybe for your friends. Maybe it will spark some smile on somebody's face. I truly hope that it will give some positive twist to incoming Christmas. Anyhow, thank you very much for having me today, for watching this video. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to see more like this, more content like this, please subscribe. And I wish you all, guys, a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Bye for today, and thank you.